What's going on, Summoners, and welcome back to another Wild Rift video. My name is Kangas, and today we'll be going over the 10 most hated champions on the Wild Rift. The current cast of champions on the Wild Rift is still pretty small, but that doesn't stop a few players from absolutely loathing these picks, so let's get right into it. First up, to no one's surprise, we have Yasuo. Ever since his release on the PC version of League, he's been one of the most controversial champions on the Rift, and that definitely carried over onto the Wild Rift. Certainly T, a famous but also infamous senior game designer at Riot Games, is responsible for being on the forefront of new mechanics, and Windwall is one of the most loved but also most hated creations. Yasuo's Windwall denies any projectiles from passing through for a few seconds, and can be an absolutely devastating ability for most champs to deal with. A lot of mid laners and marksmen are extremely reliant on their projectiles, and having their entire kit largely denied by a single ability often feels pretty awful. Yasuo can also somewhat stand inside of the Windwall, making him virtually untargetable by all projectiles, which just adds to the frustration. On top of his already frustrating Windwall, Yasuo's dash has a per target cooldown with an incredibly short cooldown at that, giving him virtually infinite dashes as long as he has enough minions and champions to bounce around with. Mobility creep has been complained about for years, and Yasuo's release was when the player base knew it was starting to get absurd. Yasuo can already delete all of your projectiles with one ability, and now he can also gap close, escape, and dodge all of your skill shots with ease as well. And the cherry on top is his potentially insane damage output. Everybody hates getting one shot, and when Yasuo is ahead, he crits you to death in mere seconds. Between his low cooldown Steel Tempest and doubled crit chance, when he has a lead, he tends to slice through entire enemy teams while deleting every skill fired at him. Yasuo often leads to a feeling of powerlessness for the enemy team if the player is skilled enough, and is considered one of the least fun champions to play against.
I alone decide my fate.
Next up, we had to include him, it's Teemo. Even though he isn't even released yet technically, the Swift Scout is one of the most beloved champions for many players, and one of the champions many players just wish would be deleted from the game. He's annoying, he's quick, and his mushrooms will have anybody unlucky enough to step on them pulling out their hair in frustration. During the lane phase, Teemo's kinda like a pesky mosquito. He's constantly buzzing in your ear, landing darts, and slowly poking you down. And when you try to engage on him, he just rolls away and disappears into stealth. Every time you try to swing at him, he darts away. And unless your jungler finally decides to come visit your lane, he's gonna keep doing it until you have to recall. Even if your jungler does try to help, Teemo has his role and camouflage to escape, making him extremely hard to actually lock down. Before you even get to his lane, you have to consider his mushrooms. They can block off choke points, and if placed well, make it extremely hard to ambush the Swift Scout, and can even turn any potential gank into an easy double kill if the enemy team isn't prepared. Later on, his shrooms even begin to deal insane damage, and stepping on two of them can often send you back to base, whether that's with a recall or a gray screen. Safely navigating around the map becomes a chore, and finding ways to avoid them becomes the name of the game. Before you can even fight him, you have to sprint through a maze blindfolded, with one wrong step losing you the fight before it even begins. Yeah, that's annoying. But before we continue, I gotta say, make sure to join our Wild Rift Discord in the description down below. We have all kinds of community discussions. You can find me on there talking about my most hated champs, and you can let me know what yours are as well. Links in the description, I'll see you there. Next up, Master Yi. Even when he's not up at the top of the tier list, he's still pretty feared and hated because he does one thing and one thing extremely well: pentakills. Master Yi is pretty weak in the early game, and most junglers are far more useful than him, but that's not what makes him scary. All it takes is one Dragon Lane gank, and suddenly he's got a double kill and prepared to take the game over. Master Yi's ultimate, Highlander, gives him attack speed, movement speed, and makes him immune to all slowing effects. Champion kills and assists also extend the duration, making it perfect for cleaning up kill after kill and chasing down entire enemy teams. Kills and assists also reduce the cooldowns for his other abilities, and often you'll find Master Yi alpha striking multiple times throughout a fight. When ahead, Master Yi slices down carries with ease, dodging all CC and becoming untargetable with his alpha strike multiple times, and in the worst case scenario, simply meditates through any damage that he can't easily dodge.
My blade is yours.
Next up, we have the Barbarian King himself, Tryndamere. Critical strike chance can often be one of the most infuriating stats in the game, with fights being randomly decided by incredible bouts of luck. Sometimes you don't get any crits when all you needed was one. Well, Tryndamere's kit relies on crit entirely, kinda like Yasuo. His passive grants him critical strike chance depending on his Fury bar. Laning against Tryndamere can often be decided purely by chance. Once he's stacked up his Fury, just over a third of his attacks will critically strike. This means that an all-in can be decided purely by how many crits he ends up landing, and this can make or break an entire laning phase. Having Tryndamere spin towards you just to land 3 crits in a row and remove most of your health bar is one of the worst feelings in the game, and there's not much you can do about it apart from just hope that he doesn't get lucky.
This'll be a slaughter.
Now, if you've been playing most of your games in the Baron lane, you may have had the absolute pleasure, the joy, of laning against Vayne. Well, it's no secret, ranged Baron lane champions are some of the most annoying champions to play against. They'll bully you in lane, dodge all of your engagements, and in Vayne's case, outscale you in the later game. She can constantly tumble forwards, landing Silver Bolt after Silver Bolt, chunking you out of lane from as early as level 2. If you're playing a champion like Camille or Fiora, you might think, I'll just wait until I get my ultimate ability and then just turn and kill her. Well, think again. Vayne also has her signature ability, Condemn, and will send you flying away or crashing into a wall for more Silver Bolt punishment. If you actually do manage to get on top of her, she simply casts her ult, doubles, and disappears into invisibility. I mean, come on, you can't even hit her. The thing is, Vayne also scales into a side lane menace, and her low cooldown tumble can be extremely frustrating to play against for many melee champions. Champions like Garen, Darius, or Dr. Mundo all struggle to even get close to Vayne while being pummeled with bolts the entire time. They don't really have an opportunity to play the game while against Vayne unless she just makes some serious mistakes. Champs like those get destroyed early, and she meanwhile scales into a tank killing machine, so they're not even safe in the grouped up teamfights. As a Baron laner, Vayne can often be your worst nightmare and is feared by many players.
Time for reckoning.
Before we get to our next champ, I want to ask our question of the day. Which champ do you hate laning against the most? Make sure to leave your answer in the comments down below. Personally, as a support main, I hate playing against Seraphine. She's just so annoying with her range, and I like to engage, so getting poked out, no fun. Let me know your answers though down below. Up next, we have Lulu, the Fey Sorceress. Lulu's best quality as a champion is denying the playmaking potential of the enemy team, and for this reason, she's often extremely unfun to play against. Lulu's Glitter Lance is a lot of damage and a devastating slow, but it's just the start of a long list of unfun abilities. Lulu's Help Picks reveals invisible champions, which for Akali and any future stealth users that get introduced is an absolute nightmare. Being unseen amongst the enemy team is crucial to those champions' kits, and being revealed every fight is just brutal to play against. Lulu's ultimate Wild Growth makes carries and divers alike both very tanky and can often be used to interrupt dashes on the enemy team. But where the most frustration comes from, and I mean one ability that just makes the game not fun, is Whimsy. The move speed it gives her allies is ridiculous, but worst of all, if you're an assassin diving onto the enemy backline to get that juicy looking AD carry, suddenly you get turned into a cupcake or squirrel just to stand still and die. Trust me, you're not gonna have much fun. Killing anything on Lulu's team becomes a chore, and you have to get through shields, movement speed, more health, a knockup, and even being turned into a variety of fuzzy little animals before you can even think about removing that pesky misfortune from the enemy team.
They aren't gonna like this.
Getting deleted from the Wild Rift in under half a second is one of the most unfun things you can experience on the Wild Rift. And let me tell you, Fizz is one of those champions that when he gets ahead tends to absolutely destroy whoever he decides to click on. With a combination of Infinity Orb and Lich Bane, if he gets a kill or two, he tends to kill most champions with his Urchin Strike, a Rending Wave auto or two, and of course his Playful Trickster. His Shark can also be a challenge to dodge and a surefire death sentence if it actually hits. Fizz is also incredibly hard to gank and punish because Playful Trickster allows him to dodge crucial abilities and any crowd control headed his way. It also functions as a quick escape for almost any situation. When Fizz is ahead, he can use his ult and Urchin Strike to remove you from the rift before dodging any retaliation with Playful Trickster. Invulnerability, untargetability, and projectile deletion are some of the most annoying things to deal with on the Wild Rift, and Fizz's primary ability is one of the most annoying untargetable moves. He's not a top tier champion on the Rift, but when he gets ahead, he's absolutely one of the most frustrating and hated champs.
Let me at 'em.
Jax is known for destroying his enemy Baron laner and rolling through entire teams with his advantage. However, that's not particularly frustrating on its own. The part that players hate is one ability, Counter-Strike. Jax enters Evasion, a defensive stance, for 2 seconds, causing all non-turret basic attacks against him to be dodged. He also takes reduced damage from all area of effect abilities and can recast the ability to stun all nearby enemies. It's one thing that Jax snowballs into a team-killing behemoth of a bruiser, but it's a completely other thing when you can't even auto-attack him before he ends your life. As a marksman player, he has got to be one of the most hated champions to play against, because even if you're fed, sometimes you're just powerless against him.
Let's do this.
Another support on the list, Blitzcrank has copped a very brutal nerf and dropped down the tier lists rapidly. But just because he's not great right now doesn't mean he's not hated by players near and far. Blitzcrank might not have the highest win rate, but his rocket grab is possibly the single most hated ability to get hit with. The game can be going perfectly. You played the early game well, you're fed, and you're gonna carry the game. You've secured dragon after dragon, and you're just about to start pushing for the end. Suddenly, a blitz hook flies over the wall, you're pulled in, and you're dead. The enemy team sprints to bear and gets the buff, and suddenly the game is hard to win. This is a fairly common scenario for games with Blitzcrank in it, and while he's still not the greatest right now, a single hook can be absolutely game-changing, and playing against an ability like that is of course immensely frustrating.
Fired up and ready to serve.
Fiora, similar to Yasuo, has one single ability that causes almost all of the frustration surrounding the champion. Fiora's riposte blocks all abilities for 0.75 seconds, during which she cannot act, but if she blocks an immobilizing effect, the strike that comes afterwards stuns the target for a full 2 seconds instead of the usual slow. Fiora being able to delete entire abilities and even ultimates with the press of a single button can be extremely frustrating for champions like Fizz and Zed, who are incredibly reliant on their ults. Worse, however, is when you think Fiora has misplayed and been caught out of position just for her to riposte your crowd control at the perfect time, turning it on you, and what you once thought was an opportunity for your team has quickly turned into an opportunity for her. Some champions like Twisted Fate and Fizz have very few options with their crowd control and are also extremely telegraphed, and playing against Fiora can be especially frustrating for them.
I long for a worthy opponent.
All of these champions are extremely frustrating in their own ways, and while yes, there is technically counterplay to all of them, they can still be a real pain to deal with. But anyway, that's it for our 10 most hated champions on the Wild Rift. Thank you so much for watching, ProGuides fam. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, and answer our question of the day in the comments down below. I love reading them. Anyways, as always, best of luck on the Rift. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you next time. Hand on the hip.